So next up, we have our final bracket of 4 here. This is the Jack Mao bracket, and this I'll let you kind of explain the storied history of this establishment.
All right. So Jack Mao, I'm going to give them props. Very good Chinese restaurant in Staten Island that I've been going to. Might be one of my dad's favorites. He loves Jack Mao, the restaurant. Always get out to go Chinese orders there. Like I said, my dad's a big fan. Another restaurant in Dongan Hills where I grew up, of course. But before it was called Jack Mao, it was called Fortune Garden. I don't know why there was a name change. I don't think there was a change in ownership. Maybe there was, but there was a name change like maybe 7, 8 years ago. Solid Chinese food. There is a Chinese restaurant that I like better than Jack Mao in Staten Island. My dad strongly disagrees with me and still likes to order from here. But there's a place that's actually in New York, closer to where I live now, Empire East, one of my favorites. Jack Mao's good too, but very, very good idea to mix it up a little bit in terms of the ethnic cuisine and
now
get a newly named restaurant here.
Yeah, so I actually did receive some commentary from a couple of our respondents who were very disappointed in the fact that I went with Jack Mao as opposed to legendary. Do you call it a hero shop or a deli? What do you call it?
Deli.
A deli, okay. Yeah. The deli named Ariema's, no relation to Gino.
No, different spelling, no you. But yeah, so a couple people noted that Ariema's was left off the bracket, and that's one of my go-to spots if I want lunch, especially. Yeah. So you're gonna have to answer that one. I mean, I can't. Why was it left off, guy? Come on.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the honest answer is I forgot it. The second answer is that, I obviously you brought me. Frank and I are in fact close friends. We don't just do this because we have to. We do have a common friendship, and we tend to like being with each other. We have a lot of common interests. But you brought me to Lee's first, and then was it Royal Crown second or Danino's second? Probably, I don't know.
I think Danino's.
Yeah, because you brought me to Danino's the first time when we did our three ballparks in 3 days trip.
Yeah.
Which, for a little side story for folks, we had this fun idea 2 summers ago, right before Frank started life in the working world, to do 3 different MLB ballparks in 3 days. And of course, part of this is you had to kind of get them close to one another. So we did DC first. We saw the National.
This was my first time in DC. Well, not in DC. At Nationals Park.
Yeah. And we ended up seeing Max Scherzer pitch, which is a great game on his part. He even had a double, which was pretty awesome, over the head of the left fielder. What a hell of a player he is. Hell of a pitcher he is. Second game was Jacob deGrom throwing a complete game shutout against the Phillies in Philadelphia.
I think he gave up a 1 run.
Okay, well, complete game. Yeah, a complete game nonetheless. And then the last game was a thriller in the Bronx, which we arrived late to.
About a half inning late.
Yeah, it's okay. I've been to Yankee Stadium a few times, but this was Blue Jays Yankees. Not a really exciting game. The Yankees really steamrolled over the Blue Jays, but the highlight of the game occurred within the first inning.
Oh yeah.
And
give yourself credit.
Yeah, and this is one of Frank's favorite Yankees of all time. I wink because it's a joke. But it was bases loaded, and up to the plate walks Greg Bird, who, of course, is he with the Yankees anymore in the minors?
No, he signed the minor league deal with the Texas Rangers.
Okay. He gets to wear one of those, one of the 5 different uniforms they have now down there, which I'm kind of disappointed we don't get to see the new ballpark yet there. That's one of the things about this season.
I do want to see it, too. Anyway, don't even get me started with the COVID thing, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, so Greg Bird walks up to the plate. And Frank and I are sitting there, and I'm like, I have a feeling that we're getting a grand slam here from Greg Bird. This was kind of joking more so because of how much everybody hates Greg Bird in Yankee land in the Bronx. But and then all of a sudden he hit a high pop up to right field, to mid-right, as I call it, because Yankee Stadium has a very, very close right field. And no, the Red Sox doesn't compare because the Green Monster is 38 feet high, even though it's only 310. Because you have to hit it up there. With Yankee Stadium, you could probably just hit a
line drive.
Yeah, and it'll go over. But yeah, Greg Bird hit a grand slam, and I should have put a bet on it, but Frank got the tickets as part of his like Yankees universe thing, so it worked out well.
Yep.
Okay, so this bracket here, and back to the Jack Mao thing. The reason why I picked Jack Mao, Frank and I have always tried to educate each other on where we're from and kind of the surrounding area and a lot of the different districts and everything. And I have a fascination with Highland Boulevard, which I call the Las Vegas Strip of Staten Island. It kind of has everything you could ever need and then some, except for the casinos and the parlors. But yeah, so all of a sudden we were looking up the map on Highland Boulevard, and there it stood on the map on Google Maps, Jack Mao. And to this day, I just think it's a great name. It's a I don't want
the
to
owner's that's the owner's name too.
Is it really?
It's the owner's name. Yeah.
No.
I'll take you sometime. They have good food.
Yeah, and I mean I don't know. With all the good food on Staten Island, do I really want to waste it on going to a Chinese restaurant?
I mean, it's I don't know if you I know you like the Italian, you like to get your Italian in when you come here. So, but
yeah,
we could save the Asian food from Manhattan. There are probably better places. You're right.
Yeah. All right. So that's why I picked Jack Mao, just because it's always been a point of talking with Frank and I, and just have you been to Jack Mao recently? It's kind of a running joke more than anything else. Not to mention it was, kind of a close spot to where it used to be. So it was kind of a fun spot for you. All right. So this bracket here, the first four events are all Yankees events. The one seed here is the 2003 World Series loss to the Marlins versus the 16th seeded Randy Levine's tenure as team president of the Yankees.
All right. So when I was saying that something was very, very poorly seeded, this is what I was talking about.
Yeah, I figured.
The one seeded 2003 World Series, way too high. Way too high.
Okay.
First, to begin, you and Joe could have been better. You did a very good job, so I want to get on you, but this is the one where I'm surprised Joe let this one slip by too. To begin, I was only 8 years old at the time, so I mean, I really couldn't appreciate or experience the pain of that loss too much.
Yeah.
Number two, I mean, I already said I was very young at the time, but number two, it's like, I don't know. It wasn't like a nail biting series or anything. I think they lost in 6. They had trouble hitting Josh Beckett, that I know, back in 2003.
Mm-hmm.
But this is very, very much overseeded. And then
Okay.
the 16th seeded Randy Levine tenure as team president, that really shouldn't be in the bracket. It's just, I don't like Randy Levine. He's got too much to say.
Yeah.
I kind of wish he would just do whatever he does as team president and let Cashman do all the talking, because Cashman makes all the decisions on personnel. Randy Levine opens his mouth too much. He one time had something to say about Dellin Betances, and Dellin Betances was an arbitration case that he ended up losing actually to the Yankees. But then there was another comment that Levine made about he didn't want certain people to be sitting in box seats and legend seats. There was a certain type of person that should only be sitting there. So that bothered me that he made that comment too, because I don't even know what he meant by that.
Yeah.
He seems like a very snooty guy. I'll go with that.
One of my favorite ones.
Yeah. So, but with that being said, the overseeded 2003 World Series goes down.
Okay. And I will mention, without naming names, that someone closely related to you did advance the 16 seed there.
Okay. They moved it down?
No, they in that matchup they picked the 16.
Oh, okay. All right.
So that if you try to figure out who that is on your own time, that's quite fun for you. Okay, so next up we have a battle of contracts by the Yankees. The Yankees' pockets just have been ever expanding since Steinbrenner bought the team. And it's funny, we really only see, other than a few Knicks deals, of Yankees bad contracts. And the Red Sox have had plenty, and the Red Sox do still continue to hurt them a little bit. And the Yankees have luckily, kind of for them, flipped the switch, but there's still some in their history which are haunting. The 8 seed is the Jacoby Ellsbury contract. You took him right out of the Red Sox hands, and we thank God you did. Versus the 9-seeded Kagawa contract.
So these are two very bad contracts. One is much more substantial in terms of the amount of money that was given, being Ellsbury. So the Ellsbury thing, I mean, at the moment when it was first signed and it was reported by whoever reported it, whether it was Rosenthal or Heyman or whatever MLB insider, I was like, wow, why are they giving him that much money? I get it. He's a nice player. He is not $100+ million player at all. I mean, this was one of those panic moves by Cashman, and this is a type of transaction that gets general managers fired, especially if you're a small market team. The Yankees can afford to absorb a mistake like this. Other teams can't.
Yeah.
But to give Jacoby Ellsbury a contract of $153 million or whatever it is over 7 years, completely absurd. Was absurd at the time. I don't know why they did it. It was a panic move because the Red Sox had just won the World Series in 2013.
Yeah.
Cashman in the 13 going into 14 off season, he signed McCann, he signed Ellsbury. He spent a lot of money. This was a complete overspend. Probably the worst transaction the Yankees have made in a while. Mm-hmm. Definitely one of the worst free agency signings. Kagawa was another very bad contract, though. I want to say Agawa, I don't think he was Japanese. I think he was out of Korea. I could be wrong about that, but I'll have to double check. But he was highly touted. Pitcher. I think he was a lefty, if I'm not mistaken.
He was.
Yeah, he was a lefty. Highly touted. Had big expectations. I think the Yankees signed like a 3 or 4 year contract, around $40 million or so, maybe a little more or less, give or take. Was terrible. I think ended up only pitching like 1 year in the majors and ended up spending the rest of his career in the minors, and had to spend the years in the minors because I think if he decided to leave MLB, he would not get paid type of thing. So they just buried him in the minors and he stayed there. Yeah. The funny thing about Kagawa is he was never good for the Yankees, never. But for some reason, I saw somebody in Staten Island wearing a Kagawa jersey. My older and Joe could confirm this because he saw it too, and we were amazed. Like, why would anyone buy that? But with that being said, the Ellsbury contract is worse, so that's going to advance.
Okay. All right, the 5v12 matchup here is the Rangers signing of Scott Gomez, which, again, really isn't something that I remember too much of. But versus the 12th seeded Patriots comeback 28-3 deficit comeback to win 33-28 or 34-28 against the Falcons in Super Bowl 51. So go ahead with that one.
So the Scott Gomez thing, so Gomez was a terrific player for the Devils, and the Rangers decided to sign him as a free agent, and it did not turn out to be very good. If I'm not mistaken, I think Gomez is from Alaska, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway,
I think I heard that before.
And that's completely irrelevant. But I just found it interesting because there aren't many NHL players that are from Alaska.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when he came to the Rangers, there were kind of high expectations because he played so well for the Devils.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it was not a good contract. I forget the exact terms of the contract. It was very big. He ended up the Rangers ended up using him to acquire Ryan McDonough, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, with the Habs, yeah.
Right. That was a good thing that came about from this signing is they used him to get Ryan McDonough, but he did not play well for the team. So, and then Super Bowl 51. This one didn't bother me as much as 49.
Yeah.
49, I was much more giving it to all the Patriots fans, yelling, screaming, saying you're not going to win. I was giving it to them, and then when when Pete Carroll decided not to run the ball and throw it. They started giving it to me, and rightfully so, because I was taunting the whole time. Anyway, 51 didn't bother me as much. I actually think I had money on the Patriots, so that probably eased the pain a little bit. So I had money on the Patriots, but I still wanted to see them lose. So it was kind of like hedging my bet, putting collateral, against it was championship insurance, parade insurance, parade. It was parade insurance. I bought parade insurance, and good thing I bought parade insurance because, So, but like I said, this didn't bother me as much as 49. With that being said, the Gomez signing was worse.
Okay. And that makes sense to me. Okay. Moving down the line here, the 4 versus 13 matchup, we have the 2019 ALCS lost to our good friends, the Astros, versus the Knicks drafting of Kevin Knox, which is still kind of up in the air on the impact, but go ahead.
This one's easy. Clearly, the 2019 ALCS is worse. There might be a little bit of recency bias, but not much. I mean, the series, unlike 2017, this one ended in 6 and not 7.
Yeah.
But the Altuve home run off Chapman, very painful. I have to look away from the TV when I see it. The Yankees didn't play as well in this series as they did in 17, though. Lots of missed opportunities. Encarnacion was awful, even though he was so good in the DS. So I was very confused by that because he hit the Twins so well, and then he couldn't hit anything. Against the Astros. And then Kevin Knox, Kevin Knox is really bad. I think the ship has sailed on his potential. He was a good player in Kentucky, but he doesn't have any NBA talent. So that was a really bad draft choice by the Knicks. Kevin Knox, I think he's shown no progress from year 1 to 2. Mm-hmm. If anything, he's regressed. I mean, he's been that bad. So another terrible draft by the Knicks. So the 19th ALCS will advance. Okay.
All right. The 6 versus 11 matchup here, we have the Yankees versus the Giants here. The 6 is this is in the correct spot. The 2012 ALDS lost by CS. Okay. The CS loss to the Tigers against the 11-seeded coaching error of Pat Shurmur with the Giants, which doesn't really seem like it ever happened.
All right. So 2012 ALCS is pretty painful in the sense that they were swept. The Yankees beat the Orioles, who had won the wild card game.
Yeah.
That was the first year of the wild card game. The Orioles beat the Rangers in the wild card game, and the Yankees beat them in 5. Mm-hmm. That was when Raul Ibanez had a little bit of magic going on in the playoffs in the ALDS and pinch hit for A-Rod, if you remember that.
Yeah.
And so the Yankees won in 5. In Game 5, CeCe pitched a complete game. I think he only gave up 1 or 2 runs. It was probably one of his best playoff performances. So CeCe was great in Game 5. So going into this ALCS, I was fairly confident, even though that confidence went downhill quickly when Jeter broke his ankle in Game 1. Yeah. And 2012 was Jeter's last great year. He hit well over 300. I think he hit like over 3. I think he went 315, 316. Jeter was great in 2012, but I believe Game 1 went into extra innings, and Jeter broke his ankle in extra innings, and it went south. Again, Raul Ibanez hit a game-tying home run in Game 1 off of Jose Valverde.
That's a name right there. I remember him.
So he had a game-tying home run. The game went into extras, and Jeter broke his ankle, and then things went south. They ended up getting swept. So that was not a good series. But the Pat Shurmur is one of the worst coaches you can. He is a perfect example of a coach who is a good coordinator but a terrible head coach.
Seems
So
like
Pat Shermer helped turn around the Vikings a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I think his last year with the Vikings was the game against the Saints that they won with that pass to
Stephon Diggs thing.
Diggs, yeah. So that was Pat, and Pat Shermer had a lot of success as the offensive coordinator with the Vikings. I think Case Keenum, not a very good quarterback, right? Was the quarterback of that team, and the Vikings offense thrived under Pat Shermer, and he'd already had a stint as a head coach with Cleveland. That didn't work out. So usually in the NFL, you get two shots. If you get two shots at a head coaching job, if your second one's not successful, you're not getting a third job type of thing. So Shermer didn't have a success in his first stint as head coach with the Browns, but he did a good job with the Vikings, and then and then got the head coaching job with the Giants. And he's a good coordinator, terrible head coach. His press conferences are painful. He repeats himself over and over again. He does not adapt. He cannot adapt in the middle of a game. Pat Shermer is a god-awful head coach. And the Giants did not do well in his 2 years. And if anything, they regressed from 1 year to the next. So I think I'm going to have to go with the Pat Shermer era advancing.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. So, and correct, you could give me some content here, or give me some sort of information as to if I correctly seeded the 3 seed in this, which is the Ben McAdoo era for the Giants.
Sorry. Can you repeat that? My headphones died, so I took them out.
Okay. All right. The wonders of technology. But and yeah, we're 2.5 hours into this, so for all of you at home, I if you want to watch us like a feature-length film, go right ahead. We are very entertaining. But if not, we certainly understand if you want to break it up over a couple of days. You do need some new entertainment within this, COVID-19 environment. So we're happy to provide some of it for you if you like what we're talking about. So so just let me know here, kind of give me some insight as to whether I seeded the Ben McAdoo era correctly as the 3, as opposed to the Shermer.
Okay, yeah. I did notice that. So, yeah, the McAdoo era is probably not as bad as Shermer. Okay. Shermer. I mean, they lost. I think they only won like 9 games combined with Shermer as head coach. They went like 4-12 and 5-11 or something like that. Yeah. With McAdoo, they made the playoffs in year 1, but he was fired in the middle of year 2. So at least they made the playoffs with McAdoo. So yeah, you probably, the McAdoo era is overseeded and the Shermer is underseeded.
Okay. And the McAdoo era is facing off against a 14 of Justin Verlander going to Houston as opposed to the Yankees in 2017, which obviously came back to haunt them in the same season. So go ahead.
McAdoo, like I said, so McAdoo's biggest mistake was the way he handled the Eli Manning thing. Yeah. In Oakland, Eli wasn't playing well back in, this is 2017 season. This is, Eli wasn't playing well, but the offensive line was a disaster. He wasn't playing well. The offensive line wasn't very good. McAdoo was like on the hot seat. He wanted to save his job, despite making the playoffs the previous year. So he tried to shake things up, and he handled the Eli Manning consecutive game streak very poorly. Yeah. It didn't help that he was benched in favor of a former Jet, Geno Smith.
Yep, that's right.
So that pissed off Giant fans even more. So the way that McAdoo handled that whole thing was terrible. With that being said, the Verlander thing, I think the thing that hurts more about the Verlander thing is not only did he help them win the championship series twice, more so in 17 than 19. He pitched better in 17 than he did in 19 against the Yankees. But the Yankees were pretty close to getting him in 17. Now, at the time, I thought that Verlander was washed up. I turned out to be wrong, right? A lot of people thought Verlander was washed because he wasn't pitching that great. He wasn't pitching great in Detroit. So I guess Cashman thought that it wasn't worth whatever he had to. I don't remember what he had to give up at the time to get Verlander, but he probably should have made the move looking back on it, right? Hindsight's 20/20.
Yeah.
And Verlander really gave the Yankees hell, especially in 17. They had a little bit better success in 19, but in 17 it was bad. So the Verlander thing is going to advance.
Yeah, and looking back on it, I probably should have seeded, or Joe and I probably should have seeded the Verlander thing a little higher than this here. I'm assuming you probably feel the same about that too, because it's to a similar level of the Cliff Lee thing.
Yeah. It probably should be seeded higher. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the reason why I think for me and my reasoning why both were lower in my mind was because, I guess there really wasn't that much of a long-term impact of them.
Yeah.
The
Verlander thing's still ongoing, right? We're still assessing the damage from that.
Yeah.
So, but the Cliff Lee thing, yeah, you're right. Sure.
Okay. All right. Bottom of the bracket here, the 7-seeded Kevin Durant choosing Brooklyn over the Knicks versus the 10-seed Kevin Shattenkirk contract, the third bad contract by the Rangers here within this bracket. So 7 versus 10. What do you have on this one?
All right. So I'll start with Shattenkirk. So the thing with Shattenkirk, he's a local guy from New Rochelle.
Yep.
Grew up a Ranger fans and wanted to play here. And everyone thought he would solidify the blue line. He had success in St. Louis. He was a good defenseman. The Rangers desperately needed help on defense, so they gave Shattenkirk a big contract, and it turned out to not work out at all. He ended up being bought out of his contract. Of course, like all former Rangers, ends up signing with Tampa somehow. There's probably a million former Rangers on the Lightning for some reason.
Yeah.
So he's now with the Lightning, but that contract, he was bought out, I think, after 2 years. So
yeah, it wasn't very long.
Yeah, he had no success with the Rangers. Mm-hmm. The Durant thing, I guess I never really bought into the fact that he was coming here deep down, because I'm not going to buy a big player coming here to the Knicks until a big player actually comes to the Knicks. I can't envision it until I see it. So all the rumors, I never get caught up in that stuff a lot. But that being said, though, it is Durant, and he's a big-time player. Even though he was coming off the Achilles, I still would have liked to seen him come to the Knicks, even though I really didn't expect it. I definitely didn't expect the Nets. That kind of caught me for a surprise. And I have no hatred for the Nets, even though they play in the same town. Yeah. Of all the local teams, they probably bother me the least, if I had to be honest. But it is Kevin Durant. He's a big name, so we'll go with that. It's being painful.
Yeah. All right. And then the final two events of the entire 64 that were listed here, we do have another Knick event against the Yankee event. So this Knick event here is Kristaps Porzingis forcing his way out of New York, which if you were just talking about star players in New York, he was probably the closest thing you had and will have for a long time to that. Versus the 15th 2013 Yankees season as a whole.
Yeah.
Which is
this is probably poorly worded. I probably should have listed as 2013 Yankee roster.
Oh, okay.
Because the 2013 Yankee roster was the worst Yankee team I've seen, despite the fact that they somehow finished over 500.
Yeah.
That team was so bad. A-Rod was coming off a hip injury and then appealing his suspension, so he played a couple months.
Yeah.
Jeter barely played. Everybody was hurt. Teixeira barely played, which, I mean, he never played anyway, except for 09. CeCe was very bad. This was the beginning of his decline before he kind of reinvented himself. Yeah. I think his ERA was in the high 4s, so CeCe was kind of falling off a little bit. You had guys like Lyle Overbay in the lineup, Luis Cruz in the lineup, Zoilo Almonte in the lineup.
Yes.
Who else? I mean, the list goes on and on of no-name Yankees that were on this 2013 team. So this is by far, in recent memory, the worst Yankee team I can remember, 2013. And I think that's a testament to how good a coach Joe Girardi is, because manager, because they ended up finishing the year over 500 with a very bad roster. So I have to give credit to Girardi for that, because they were competitive into mid-September despite that roster. Yeah. Porzingis, they didn't get enough in the return for him. He's so talented, so that bothers me that he wanted out. His attitude, the way he left, it kind of left a sour taste in everyone's mouth. So yeah, I have to go with Porzingis. Even despite the injuries, because he's injury prone, he has a hard time staying on the court. Still, the upside is he has so much upside that's more painful and still is more painful.
Yeah. And that's kind of the way I thought you would go on that one. All right. To the next round of this bracket here, we have the 2003 World Series up against the Jacoby Ellsbury contract.
Yeah, this one's easy. The Ellsbury contract.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, like I said, the Yankee lost to the Marlins. I wasn't really old enough to really know what was going on at the time.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at my reasoning on this, and again, it was a significant honor for me to be asked to do this, being a Boston sports fan. The reason why I seeded the 2003 World Series so high was because, well, you're looking at it from my perspective as well, too, just think about that in the back of your mind, is this was the Aaron Boone Game 7 walk-off.
Yeah.
And they went into the World Series. And I always like to point out to you that even though you guys beat the Red Sox, you guys didn't even win the World Series afterwards.
Right.
Whereas we did the year after. So that. But yeah, the importance of a World Series, that's why I ranked it so high.
Yeah, that's fair. No, that's fair. It's just, to me, it's not a 1 seed. I mean, maybe a 5-6 type of thing, but it's not.
You think it's that low, even though it's a World Series loss?
Yeah, I mean, if this was the 2001 World Series, which wasn't included, the loss to Arizona,
yeah,
a walk-off fashion. I mean, that wasn't included because I was 6 at the time. I can't. That's like way too young.
Yeah.
But if like, let's say that 01 World Series happened in 2011, then definitely it's a 1 seed because that was like Mariano blowing the save in Game 7 off a bloop single to Luis Gonzalez. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Now, if you want a Luis Gonzalez story, I forget the name of the cereal, but there used to be a cereal that you could get baseball players' bobbleheads in. Did you ever get that?
I don't think so.
Well,
how do you fit a bobblehead in a cereal box?
No. That's the point. It's like a Pez-sized bobblehead. You like a Pez?
Yeah.
It was like a tiny bobblehead. But I remember having my mom get these cereal things for me, and there would be like these tiny little Pez-sized bobbleheads in it. And I got like 2 or 3 Luis Gonzalez bobbleheads.
Do you still have them?
I think, but I don't know where it is. So much crap in my house here, but and it's in a lot of locations I have no idea. But yeah, Luis Gonzalez. I got an Ichiro Suzuki, I think, as well.
At least that's a good one.
Yeah, but it was so fascinating. It's like it was better than a Happy Meal at that point, from McDonald's. It was the best thing ever. You get a thing of cereal and there's a bobblehead at the bottom of it.
Oh wow! I wish you remembered what's kind of. You're gonna have to look into that after this.
I'm going to have to, absolutely, because that was one of the highlights of my childhood. I think. Was getting a baseball bobblehead out of cereal.
Oh my gosh.
So, all right, the 5 versus 4 matchup here is the Scott Gomez signing for the Rangers against the 2009 ALCS, the loss to Houston.
2019. You said 2009.
Oh, sorry, 2019. Yeah.
Yeah. So the clearly the 2019 ALCS is worse. Like I said, I can't watch the Altuve home run thing because it drives me crazy. The LeMahieu home run teased me, tying up the game in the bottom of the 9th. Top of the 9th. So yeah, the 19 CS for sure.
Okay. All right, and then moving down here, we have a weird 11 versus 14 matchup. We have the Pat Shurmur era. I do tend to stutter for once in a while. Era with the Giants against the Justin Verlander trade to Houston in 2017.
So as bad as Pat Shurmur was, Verlander, even though in the moment I wasn't that pissed, the lasting effect of Verlander being traded to the Astros has impacted me too much, so that's going to advance.
All right. Now, this might be the Cinderella story, this Verlander thing.
It could be.
It very well could be. All right, so the last matchup of this round is the Kevin Durant. It's actually 2 Knicks events. So it's Kevin Durant going to the Nets versus Kristaps Porzingis forcing his way out of Madison Square Garden with the Knicks.
Boy. I think if Durant ended up coming to the Knicks, things start going in the right direction for the team in the course of the franchise. Like maybe he attracts other free agents at some point down the line, even if he's not as effective as he was in his 20s.
Yeah.
And even if he's got a bad Achilles, I think the trajectory of the Knicks franchise changes if he comes to the team. Porzingis, I don't think him being on the team would do that. So for that reason, I'm going to go with Durant.
Interesting. Okay. All right. So the final four here, we have an 8-seeded Jacoby Ellsbury contract up against the 2019 ALCS loss to Houston.
So, because they're the Yankees have been able to absorb the bad contract of Ellsbury. I mean, they weren't good in 13. They weren't good in 14. This is after 13. They weren't good in 14.
Yeah.
They were in the wild card game in 15. 16, they missed the playoffs, but they've recovered pretty nicely since then. The 19 CS, who knows where we're going from there? Because it's only been a year since that's happened. So, the Yankees very well could be matching up with the Astros again in the future, or maybe the Astros won't be there. They fall off a little bit. Who knows? But still, in the moment, that was too painful. So the ALCS.
All right. And the other thing I'll bring up too with that is we're looking at it too. A lot of Houston's young players are coming up on their big contracts.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I wonder too if something's going to happen there. I know Bregman just signed a deal, but
I've heard that they're rumored to be looking to move Springer.
Yeah, and that would make a lot of sense for them. All right, so second to last matchup of this bracket, we have the 14th seeded Verlander being traded to Houston, the Astros, versus the Kevin Durant going to Brooklyn as opposed to the Knicks.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with Verlander. Because of who knows if Verlander comes to the Yankees, not even looking at 17 and 19, you could say, what about 18? Perhaps he comes to the Yankees and in 2018, the Yankees go on a run. It's hard to tell. You never know.
Yeah.
So I'll go with Verlander.
Interesting. So if you're keeping track at home, which again, I'm sure you're not, but because we've been going at this for close to 3 hours now, but this final matchup here of the Jack Mao bracket, literally featuring almost the exact same scenario here.
Yeah.
Basically, you have the 2019 ALCS loss to Houston versus the 14 Justin Verlander being traded to Houston, which is contributing to the loss in 17 and 19 in the ALCS.
Boy. You know what? The thing with the Verlander thing, though, is in the moment, it wasn't that painful. I remember when I checked my phone in the morning and I got the notification that Verlander's been traded to Houston, and I kind of shrugged my shoulders like, okay, I don't know how much he has left in the tank.
Yep.
It turns out he had a lot left in the tank, right? But I didn't know that at the time. And then with the 2019 ALCS, in the moment, it was as painful as it gets. But then you can't really look back on that 19 ALCS because it hasn't even been a year yet.
Yeah.
So it's really tough. It's really, really tough. But I'm gonna have to go with the 19 ALCS.
Okay.
Because just seeing that happen before my eyes was tougher to swallow. Even though Verlander really contributed more to the 17 CS than did the 19 CS, because the Yankees beat Verlander in Game 5 in the 19th CS. That was the Aaron Hicks home run off the foul pole.
Yeah.
That one. Yeah. So that was. So it's not like he completely shut them down in 19.
Got it.
So I'm gonna have to go with the 19 ALCS.
Okay.